Hello everyone and welcome to Blank First Page. My name is Lucas. In this video, I'm going to be talking about all the notebooks I used when I was renovating my house. The first decision I had to make when renovating the house was which notebooks to use. There were two criteria that came to mind straight away that informed basically what notebooks from my collection I was going to choose to use. The first one was that I expected there was going to be a lot of sketching involved, a lot of room layout, a lot of dimensions of things that needed to be taken down. And for that, a grid notebook is the best because you've got the layout there to help you. All you need is a pen and the grid is going to help you sketch mostly rectangles and squares, which is what goes in a house. And if you need to draw angles, you can kind of guess that and draft them in on the basis of having the grid layout. So grid was very important to help me sketch, which is a thing I'm not very good at. And also for things like to-do lists and task lists and so on. And you can also divide the page into columns or different sections if you need to with the help of that grid. And the second main criteria was the ability to use the notebook in various situations. It's all fine when you're sitting at a desk or the kitchen table, as we were often, designing and thinking through things, but I knew that as construction would start and as we'd be going to different offices, I wanted something that I could easily handle and write on the go. So that's what led me then to the combination of it had to be grid and it had to be ring bound. With a ring bound, you can obviously open it fully flat. It's always the same thickness. It's always consistent. And you're always able to hold it fine in one hand with kind of your whole hand supporting the notebook to write on even when you're standing. First one I chose was this Stenographer's notebook from Life, and it was the only notebook I had at the time that was this A5 size, ring bound and grid. So it kind of met all those criteria. I progressed through a number of different notebooks for a couple of reasons. One is there's only so many top ring-bound grid notebooks that I have. It also kind of matched the progression of the project itself. So at the start with this Stenographer's notebook, there's a lot of space. The big pages are useful for many of the initial meetings I had to have. And then there were things like a lot of inventory taking of furniture that we currently owned, taking those dimensions so that I could take those then into the house and think whether those things would fit, how they would fit. I did a lot of sketching and taking down notes up front of the sizes and layout of things in our current apartment. We liked where we were living. We liked a lot of how things were set up. So it was a great kind of template to take dimensions of things, because there's obviously standard dimensions for doors and layout. But when you see those on Instagram or you're looking at kind of architecture, YouTube, it's difficult to get a sense of that when you're just thinking of dimensions. You might think, 2 meters is a certain length, but in the context of a kitchen top, it takes on a whole other meaning. So I did a lot of going around the current apartment that we were in, taking dimensions of things, sketching them out, because I was very familiar with that space. I could then know when I was looking at what size things would be, I could compare that to what I was living in and have a good sense of how that would feel and so on. So there was a lot of that going on up front. I was kind of noting down brands of things that I was coming across. The front end of a project like that is very exciting because you have all these ideas. So that was phase one. And towards the end of the notebook, you can start to see more to-do lists and a lot rougher sketches start coming in. And that's because the construction had properly started. All the demolition had happened. It's funny, with a house, you strip it back very quickly, walls go up very quickly, so it feels like a lot of progress is happening in a very short space of time. But then thousands of decisions start popping up. Where exactly do you want the door of the bathroom to be? How is that going to sit in relation to where the sinks are going to be in your bathroom, sinks that you haven't yet bought? All of these decisions you go to site, the contractor says, how do you want X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, F, G? And so that is where the second notebook started coming in, and it is, I would say, 80% filled with to-do lists, because every few days I'd either have a call with the contractor or be on site going through the house saying, okay, we're gonna do this next. What do you want? What's your decision on ABC? There was a lot to keep track of. Now it was about, okay, quick problem solving, lots of lists, lots of things to action. And that is where a good, more pocket-friendly notebook came in handy. I applied my to-do list philosophy heavily, write a to-do list, you get 4 or 5 things done, the next 7 items come up because you've had the next meeting, write a new to-do list, bring things over. I lived with these notebooks. They were very much core to my everyday carry, as important and as thought of as my field notes carries. And especially this middle notebook, because it was in the heart of the construction so much, it wore in really nicely. And then towards the end of this notebook, as many of the large volume of decisions had started to be cut down, such as with the stairs, with the electrical layout, with the plumbing, the notebook starts becoming a bit more organized again. I'm now calling the to-do lists punch lists. We're in the home run of the last 20%. As a side note, the last 20% takes as long as the first 80%. And that's when, from this kind of rough and ragged notebook, I move again into a more refined notebook choice. Still the grid, still the ring bound. I don't need the large size anymore because I'm not doing any large scale or big sketches. Still a lot about punch lists, starting to put some solid plans about the furniture that I can build, such as the wall unit that is behind me now. So very handy notebooks. I'd say these are probably the most practical, useful notebooks that I've ever had in terms of the real world output that they've assisted with. I'm very pleased I actually did all that work in a notebook. These notebooks I will have even if we eventually move out of this house. So I hope you enjoyed seeing and hearing about my very specific use notebooks. Let me know in the comments if you've ever done something similar yourself, if you have project-specific notebooks that you use, why you choose what you choose for different projects like the grid and the spiral bound. I'm curious to hear. And thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.